So I spent some time and created different layers. One of them has all the curves, and we have the original surfaces, most of them, because I deleted one of them, but that's okay, because we're going to rebuild everything anyway. And you can see I've made some minor changes which help having really smooth transitions. And they're basically the same as the curves I used on the other side. So you can see here, if you show the points, the point layout is pretty much exactly the same. The shape is basically exactly the same. And this is essentially, it's an offset of this curve here. And then for this fillet here, it's just a fillet of, I think it's 2 units. And so I'm using exactly the same fillet size here as I am here. Yeah, so by default I should have enough points to get really nice results. And then this one, you've seen me build it before, it's very simple. Yeah, so that kind of covers the type of curves we're going to be using. So we're going to jump into it and create some surfaces. So here we're only dealing with half of the object. So the first thing I'm going to do is mirror some of these curves to the other side. So I can just type it in, mirror, and I'm going to use the grid snap, and using shift, I'm mirroring all of these curves to the other side. So now all I have to do is go under the surfaces and do something like a loft. So if I make a loft between this surface, and that one, press enter. Just using the normal settings, you should get a super nice surface. It's kind of strange that it's adding a span, an ISO span right there. Let's check. Yeah, that's not normal. I'm gonna go in and check some of that stuff. Let's see if we have additional points. Yes, we do. Here you go. That's the reason for that problem. So in Rhino, most of the time you can just delete points. So let's try it out and see what happens. Just press delete. Yeah, looks fine. Okay, so that should do the job. Just to make sure everything is lined up correctly, I'm gonna go in and use the match command. And here you have two choices. You can match this curve to this one, which I guess in this case it works. Most of the time I would do the opposite. I would match this transitional surface to this larger surface. And what kind of dictates this way of thinking is that here you're looking at a larger surface, which is, it's more important. It's basically a priority, right? Something that's larger is going to become a priority over the smaller surfaces. So most of the time I would use that round surface and match it to the larger surface. Because once I make a loft, it's gonna give me better results. Yeah, here you go. Same surface, it just looks better. It's less heavy because of these points. And then if I do the same thing here, ideally it's going to match with the edge. But if it doesn't, then it's doing two surfaces. That's interesting. That's fine. Two surfaces is completely fine for what we're doing here. But so sometimes you can also refine these edges by matching the surface. So you can also match this entire side of the transitional surface with your major surface, with your main surface. And you can make sure that it is tangent or curvature. In this case, we want to make sure it's tangent. And it looks like I selected the wrong surface, because if I do curvature, you can see that it's this surface that's moving, not the smaller transitional surface. So I want to make sure I select the correct one, which would be this one, I guess. Let's try it out again. Nope. Okay, so we're dealing with this one. So matching this surface to the larger one. And if we say curvature, nope, still not working. That's very strange. If I type in rebuild, it's going to show me the points I'm using, and here's the problem again. So the original curve I used was a default fillet curve, and by default it's using the arc tool, and for the arc tool it uses degree 2. So that's not really important to know, but when you use degree 2, it tends to break up surfaces into multiple surfaces, and it's a mathematical thing, so when you use degree 2, it just doesn't make a single surface from a single curve because it's an arc and it's degree 2. So it's more complicated than that, but it's basically the math of it. Yeah, the math are not very good. I mean, for what we're doing here, it's not very good. Most of the time it's fine. It just doesn't work for us this one time. You can see it here. You have a CV, basically a beginning point, another CV that dictates the curvature, and then you have another CV, but the CV is on the curve. So again, it's part of the mathematics, and so what it does here is it makes sure that this curve creates two surfaces, and it's just not what we want in this case, especially if we're going to align one surface to the other, because you can't align a degree 2 surface to a degree 3 surface. So basically all we have to do to fix that is rebuild our degree 2 surface with 3 degrees. And we can use 5 or we can crank it up, but 5 is completely fine. It says the deviation, so the amount of change, is very, very small. It's 0.0009. So that's a very small amount of deviation. If the deviation was 0.1, I would be concerned, but this is way below 0.1. So we're going to accept with degree 3, and we're going to go back and rebuild all of these curves one by one. So just degree 3, 5 points, that's fine, okay. We do the same thing here and here. Okay, so once this is done, we can go in and do a loft. And then if we do a match surface, we can match this transitional surface to the larger surface. And let's see if we selected the correct one. Nope. Okay, let's do it the opposite side. I think it's going this way to this way. So it doesn't seem like it's working. But it's fine, like by default it's already tangent. It is moving the surface slightly, but it's so subtle that it's not going to make a major change. So that's completely fine, we'll just keep it this way. Out here it should be fine as well. I just want to check one thing really quick. If I rebuild this, is it telling me it's degree 2? No, it's degree 3, so that's good. Now to make the bottom surface, all I'm going to do is mirror this to the other side, and I'm holding shift to do that. By the way, these are center lines. They're a reference for where I want my center line to be. That's why I was able to select this simple surface and mirror it from here to the other side. I'm just going to press escape to cancel this feature because it's already there. I guess, you know, it's straightforward enough that we can just go in and do whatever we want. We can do a loft, we can do 2 lines, we can do a planar surface. There's so many ways to do it. In this case, I'll just do a loft, because it tends to work really well, and it's a very simple feature where you just click twice and you get a nice surface. So I'll just use that, show the points. It's giving us the right number of points. It's not degree 2, it's a degree 3 because it has 1, 2, 3 CVs on this orientation of the surface. Okay, and then we already know that this is going to be tangent by default, and the reason why we know that is because all of the curves we used were tangent to a straight line. But if we wanted to, we can try to match it. It really doesn't matter in this case. I'm just concerned about using the match command in this surface because we had some issues lining it up with this surface. But we can try it out just to see if it does work. Okay, so we're going outwards and inwards. Which surface is it moving? The wrong surface. So now if we do inwards to outwards, Yeah, it's still doing the same thing. For some reason, it's not letting the transitional surface align to our larger, or basically major surface, main surface. So that's okay. I mean, the way we've created the curves, we know we have tangency. So if we wanted to, we can match this surface to the other one using match curve, so that's not going to work. We want to match surface. So if we really want to make sure that it touches perfectly on this edge, because we're using a loft, we can use position to position. We really don't have to do that. Yeah, in this case it doesn't make sense to do it. I'm just letting you know that sometimes you might want to make sure that this edge lines up perfectly, and you would use the match surface to make sure it has a nice clean edge. Especially if you're going to 3D print a solid, then this is a quick, easy way to get there.